I think I'm gonna sing, still talk tonight. I'm just gonna make up anything as I go, looking at my friends in the house. Everybody, look at the friends in the house. Marcy, talking about Marcy. Nigel and a baby Paul. Calvin, all the way from Vallejo. Rockin' on tonight. I brought my family, Nine and Beauty, Ruth Clinton, my little nephew. Strangers is in the house. I got Harry over there, Peter on the side. I'm ready whenever you are. So ready whenever you are. Gail, Gail Muldrow. Let me back up the microphone or it's gonna get discotheque.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just, that was a mic check.
All right, well, thank you all for joining us here in the main room of City Lights. And for those of you online, welcome as well. I'm Peter Marabelis. I do the events here at City Lights. And always an honor to be hosting an event on Ohlone land. So, and also a great honor to have Dawn Silva here with us at City Lights, celebrating her amazing book, The Funk Queen, which is beautifully, profusely illustrated. It's in the style of an art monograph. It's got tons of rare photographs and some amazing, amazing stories. It is the story of survival and persistence, a tale of a courageous woman who stood against the male-dominated music industry and never backed down. It's also about what it means to live a life where one realizes one's creativity and is able to express creative agency. Dawn Silva is a singer, songwriter, author, and funk artist of epic proportions. She began her career as a background singer for Sly Stone and Family Stone, and later went on to become a member of Parliament-Funkadelic. She's born and raised in Sacramento, California. Yes? How many folks in Sacramento here?
Yeah.
Yes. So, she went on to work extensively in the areas of rhythm and blues, funk, pop, jazz, blues, hip-hop, rap, and numerous other genres. Her collaborations have included the Eurythmics, guitarist Dave Stewart, the Gap Band, Coolio, Dale the Funky Homo Sapien, Ice Cube, amongst others. Together with such artists as Lynn Mabry, Jeanette McGruder, and Sheila Horn, Miss Silva was the lead singer of the legendary Brides of Funkenstein.
Yeah.
And Miss Silva's critically acclaimed debut novel entitled All My Funky Friends won praise from many channels in the music industry and beyond, making its way up in the Billboard charts. Her new book explores the remarkable trajectory of a life lived in music and creativity. It is such a great honor to have her with us here tonight. And in the room with us, we have none other than Harry Duncan.
Yeah.
Harry's been one of Northern California's most active and influential figures in the live DJ, radio programming, concert production, and promotion and artistic management scene for decades. The list of who he's worked with is a formidable one. We'd be here for the duration of the evening if we went there. Harry hosts the radio show In the Soul Kitchen, which is from 7 to 10 p.m. Pacific time every Sunday night. Harry's past shows have been archived. You can find that on the KCSM website. You can find a link to that. Harry's open shows for the artists like Aretha Franklin, The Roots, the Sun Ra Orchestra, Tower of Power, Trombone Shorty, Steel Pulse, and many, many others. We also have a special guest, composer, singer, and guitarist, Gail Muldrow.
Yo. All right, the Scottish Muldrow.
My mic just went out again.
Yeah, testing.
Check.
Row.
Okay. I gotta do it.
I'm in a white band, buddy.
Okay, so I gotta do this. So, Ms. Gail has played an important role in the Bay Area music scene for over decades. She is considered a musician, having performed with Sly Stone's High on New album. She's been a member of the Family Stone Experience, as well as the Johnny Otis Show, the Grand Central Station. She's performed with the likes of Merle Saunders, Quicksilver Gold, Chaka Khan, and Prince. We're going to be making space for a Q&A, so those of you online as well, post your questions in the chat. And then Ms. Silva is also going to be signing books at the end. So, give her a warm welcome.
Yeah!
So welcome each and everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to get over here to have an opportunity to commune with the Funk Queen. And I know we got some good folks on Zoom tonight, so we want to say hello to all the gang in Oakland and Berkeley. Let's see, way uptown in Manhattan, in Inwood, in Harlem, Atlanta, and a big contingent and loving shout out to all our gang, contingent from the Motor City. Is there with us tonight. Dawn,
Yay.
you wanted to start by talking about your mom and not having a TV set and all that stuff, so why don't you speak to that to get started?
Actually, I wanted to start off with a story that my mom used to tell all of us. In fact, my mother, we didn't have a television set when we grew up. We couldn't afford one. We had my mother's bedtime stories, and we had a radio that stayed on all day long. There was only one black radio in Sacramento, and it played all genres of music. It played everything from Muddy Waters to Mozart. It played from Patsy Cline to Elvis Presley to Ray Charles and everything in between, all genres of music. And I grew up and I developed a very sense of music, a variety of music, appreciation of all genres of music. But before we went to bed at night, my mom would start off a story like this. Whole indigenous nations melted away like snowballs in the sun, but not all perished. Some escaped Andrew Jackson's 1836 Indian Removal Act. Some of them survived and lived in caves in the mountains along the North Carolina-Tennessee border. One of the survivors was named Red Stick. And Red Stick's family, in a desperate attempt to save a dying race from extinction, he was named after his mother's tribe, the Tusagali Cherokees, and his father's tribe, the Renegade tribe, the Red Stick Creek. Now, when Red Stick was 12 years old, he returned home to the mountains in that cave, only to discover that his family was brutally murdered. He was 12 years old. So Red Stick came down from the mountains and he went over there to the lower bluffs where all the freed coloreds were living. In those parts, as he says. He called them the dark skins. What they did was they shaved his head and they hid him in the walls of the cabins, sometimes for whole winters. In fact, they hid him for 10 years in those walls. Finally, the militia stopped looking for him and he could come out those walls. And one day he went down into the lower bluffs and he saw a woman laying on the ground drinking water from a bubbling stream. Because you see, back in those days, water would bubble up out of the ground. It was icy, cold, and pure. Can't you even imagine that? And he saw this lady, and she was dark, and her skin was dark and even, and her hair wasn't wrapped up and bonded. It hung on a thick black rose. And he seemed to pick up this strange-looking instrument And she started plucking. Now, Red Stick, he heard those sounds before. He heard those plucking sounds before, and it brought him great pain. For some reason, this banjo plucking lady, her sounds were engaging. So Red Stick and this banjo plucking woman became acquainted. And eventually they got married. And they had 5 children. That banjo plucking woman and Red Stick, the old Indian, were my great grandparents. And that was one of my mother's stories. And the first 3 pages of my book that I wrote about. We didn't stop there, my mother and all her stories. She talked about my father's paternal grandparents. We'll be here all day talking about them because we went all the way back to the 15th century when the Acadian French were kicked out of the UK because they refused to bend the knee to the Queen. Does that sound similar? So the Queen kicked out all 10,000 of those Acadian French, and they went to Quebec and Nova Scotia, Canada. In the 1700s, they migrated to New Orleans, Louisiana. Fast forward to my great-grandfather, my paternal great-grandfather. When he was 23, he inherited 200 slaves. And out of those 200 slaves, he had 62 children. There's a story. Some of those ancestors are right over there. Adam Webre, French and German, my great-grandfather. So one day my mother gave me a tablet and a pencil, and I started writing those stories down, and I've been writing them ever since. Then I started writing my own story. And it started off like, "Dear Diary, today my father took me to see Sly and the Family Stone." The year was 1968. Santana was opened up for Sly and the Family Stone, then at a auditorium called Memorial Auditorium in Sacramento, California. And he had a hit record out at that time. Remember that song? In 1968? Dance to the Music, I think it was. I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my song. Thank God. And then makes no difference what bag I'm in. And everyday people, yeah. Oh. Wait a minute, hold up. There we go. Let me do this. We're gonna get close. And then there was another one too, but in 1968 it was. Wait a minute, where's your other guitar? Playing Sly's music on the banjo? That's some different, yeah, it works. You never know. You never know. So by the way, that was my first concert, and I had made up my mind right then and there when I saw that show. It was so mesmerizing that I had made up my mind that's what I was going to be when I grew up. I decided that I wanted to be in a powerful, in a group, and that was when I was 15. I had made up my mind right then and there. That's what I was going to do when I grew up. I was going to be a part of a famous group. Unbeknownst to me, fast forward 7 years, this lady was over at Sly's house because she was one of his proteges. He was teaching her how to play guitar. She must have been, what, 14, 15? 14 or 15 when I first met this lady right here. In fact, she met Sly before I did. And then not only was Sly teaching her how to play guitar, he's also her Sly's brother, Freddie. And then when we gonna do the dance with that? Why do you want to do everyday people? We're just gonna do the chorus, right? Dance to the music. Dance to the music. Dance all we need. For people.
And make it easy to move your feet. That ain't what it is.
Yeah, we supposed to do. Yeah. Some music. What? Yeah, that was Sly and the Family Stone. So then we went out with Sly. We played on it every televised show that you could think of back in those days, and it was the highlight of my young life. It was so surreal. I never thought in a million years that I would actually have the opportunity to sing with Sly Stone, and it just so happened a friend of mine introduced me to him. So we kind of skipped over that subject. How I met him, I was invited to a recording session over at the record plant in Sausalito. And one Sly's sister was a horse. She couldn't hit them top notes, right? So I went out there and I sang those top notes like my life depended on it. And the next thing I know, Sly walked up to me and said, "Welcome to Sly and the Family Stone." So I went out with him for 4 years, and then we moved on from touring with Sly Stone to going on tour with Parliament-Funkadelic. Okay, and at that time, Parliament-Funkadelic was probably the biggest group in the world. And they had this spaceship, the mothership, and they used to land on Earth. I mean, a real spaceship. Okay, $275,000 spaceship. I wrote about it in the book. And a song that I do remember that I made my debut performance on was "Swing Down, Sweet, But Sweet Jazz." Let me ride. But then there's another one. Sweet Jazz, let me ride. Swing down, sweet Jazz, let me ride. Swing down, sweet Jazz, and then there was another one go, "Does make my funk, but what the." Good evening. Do not attempt to adjust your iPads and iPhones, but there is nothing wrong. We will return it to you as soon as you are grooving. Yeah. Welcome to the station WEFUNK. Better known as We Funk, She Funk, P Funk, the Bum. Oh me, I'm a dancing party of sisters being down to assist you. And the steps required to dance the dance of sensitivity. Oh, what's the hook? It goes like this. Make my funk to be fun. I want to get funk to. Make my funk to be fun. Won't get funk to. I want the bomb. I want to be fun. She funk. I wanna get stepped. Make my funk to be fun before I take it home. Okay. Shh. And then went from Parliament-Funkadelic to. Yeah, man. Uh-oh. Oh yeah, forgot about the Brides of Funkenstein. Well, see, I'm singing this opera talk. Supposed to be talking it, not singing. I'm supposed to be talking about. Okay, so yeah, and then I went to go work with Parliament-Funkadelic, and then I wrote about my experiences being working with the Brides of Funkenstein, which was one of George Clinton's creations. I wrote many chapters, about 15 chapters on Parliament-Funkadelic, which is in the middle of the book. I'm trying to think of my greatest memory. I wrote about winning music award. I guess the Brides of Funkenstein were basically nominated for the best group of the year, and we were up against some really great artists like Sister Sledge and the Pointer Sisters, and I know there's a couple other artists right there, and we won. That was the highlight of my life with Parliament-Funkadelic. So, of course, the group started to splinter, and we all went our separate ways. From there, I went on to work with the Gap Band. Now I'm turning it over to Harry because I'm sure he has we dropped the bomb on with the Gap Band. So yeah, the Gap Band was it how many years? 11 years with the Gap Band. So, yeah, 11 years singing with the Gap Band. So I was, the positive side, I sang on several of their top big albums, and so there was definitely a total experience with working with the Gap Band. So now, Harry, where do we go? Ice Cube. Yeah, when I left the Gap Band, actually, I wrote about it in the book about I was trapped. No, I'm all over the place. You want to go back to he with the Panther, Black Panther? We missed the Panther. You don't want to do the Panthers, do you? All right now. It's part of the program. Okay. Ice Cube and Coolio. Yeah, so I was signed to Ice Cube's production company for it was called Street Knowledge. And for a couple of years, and I co-wrote and helped him write a bunch of stuff. That's when he was doing what's that name of that movie? Boys in the Hood was the first, actually my first production that I've ever been on. Actually, when that movie comes on, the first voice you hear singing is mine. Yeah, I did a lot of speakovers, and Ice Cube had his own production company that was signed with Priority Records. So a couple of years working with a Coolio who was fresh out of the penitentiary. So he had a lot of stuff to talk about. So we went from there to Yo-Yo and Dr. Dre and DJ Pooh and all of the people that were signed to that label. Then from there, we went to Brazil for 14 years with the world-renowned Platters. So can you imagine me coming from Parliament-Funkadelic and Sly Stone to Gap Band to wearing a gown with gloves, white stones, on stage with the Platters. Of course, the Platters in Brazil were like Elvis over there. I had no idea. I went over there because one of their singers got sick and I filled in for her. I was just going to sub for a 4-month tour, which turned into 14 years. And then they couldn't pronounce my name in Brazil. And of course, there's a lot of stories in there about in Brazil. I wrote one of the songs on my album was about a 4-year-old girl who, homeless little girl, who lived in a cardboard box behind the back of a 5-star hotel. Now, we were doing a residency in Brazil, so we were staying in this elaborate hotel. And every night, that little 4-year-old was out begging for food, and they would chase her away. Then one day, one of the concierge told me that her home was behind the back of the hotel. So I went back there, and I saw her little cardboard box, and she had, soda cans pressed on top of this box. She had some toilet paper and a blanket, and that was her home. Broke my heart to see a little girl in there. So when I came back from the show every night, I would sneak her into my room, and I did that for 4 months. I would have the maids watch her. And she couldn't speak English, and I couldn't speak Portuguese, not very well, and we started teaching each other. And I got really close to her. I was supposed to sing a song about that tonight, but then a keyboard player, couldn't make it. So in a sense, I'm glad because I'm already getting emotional just sharing this with you. And I wrote about that in the book as well. But I got close to her. Her name was Mariana. And I tried to bring her home with me. Of course, the immigration wouldn't let me because she had no papers, no birth certificates, no nothing. They wouldn't let me. So the day I left to come back to the United States, I drove away and left that little 4-year-old baby on the front steps of that hotel. That was 30 years ago. And I think about her often. and wonder what happened to her, where she is, or why is it that I couldn't bring her back. So as I look at the world now, what's happening with us right now, that can be us. I see us going in that direction. Maybe 30 years ago, there was over, I guess, just in Sao Paulo, Brazil, there was 1 million babies, homeless babies, 1 million under the age of 10 on the streets, 1 million. And she was just one of them. So I wrote this song about, and it's called Calling Out Your Name. Like, how could you walk past a child while she has her hands out to you, begging for you to feed her, and you just step over? I couldn't do that. So wherever that little girl is today, I hope that maybe she might remember me like I remember her. So moving on from that story, I did write about it, and it's a very sad part of my life with that little girl. So from coming back from Brazil to working with a keyboard player now, Bernie Worrell, which is a chapter I wrote about in the book, Going Out with the Bernie Worrell and the Woo Warriors, who's actually one of the keyboard players that wrote Flashlight, a lot of those hit songs for Parliament-Funkadelic, and I toured with him for a couple of years. And then from there, is there more? You want me to keep going? Okay. After I went out on the road with Bernie, then the highlight of that career was when we did, you were there because he was working with George Clinton. Marcy Garagosian right over here is George Clinton's publicist right there. But Marcy Garagosian and we go all the way back to Sly Stone. I met her at the same time I met Gail. So we've been knowing each other for 40 something years. And I'm about to cry because I haven't. Thank you, Jesus. You know, God is good. So where was I? After Bernie Worrell, our highlight of his career with the Woo Warriors was Woodstock 1999 in Rome, New York, when 300,000 people showed up. Yeah.
I'm going down, yes, rockin' back, get back to set my soul free. Yeah, stop. We are 10 billion year old coming, and we can't back to the God.
Sang Gail Muldrow. And then after that, after Woodstock, you know what? I went over to Priority Records and I told them, keep it going, Gail. I said, I got a brand new record. You know what Priority said to me? And I wrote about it in my book. Yeah, he said funk was gone and it need to stay gone. He said funk was dead. So he told me he wasn't going to put my record out. He said there was no more market for funk. I wrote about it in my book. What you mean there's no funk? Ain't no funk on the radio. What you mean? He says there's no market for funk any longer. And he said it's dead and needs to stay dead. That's what he told me. So then I got all in my feelings, and I took that personal, right? And I said, Dear Diary, today I'm going to release my album all by myself on my own label. Since you said funk was dead and there's no market for it no more. And I did. And I sold 275,000 copies of that album out of my kitchen to a dead market. To a dead market, okay? A ghost market. Come on, baby, come on. To a dead market. And after that, I got license deals all over the world. Holland, Germany, Belgium, France, Denmark, Luxembourg, China, Japan, Canada, Yeah, and then the United States said, oh, well, maybe funk ain't dead after all. But I said, nah, America, you had a shot and you turned your back on me. So I'm going to Amsterdam. And I did. And I headlined the North Sea Jazz Festival with my funk that was dead, a dead market. Sold out the Paul Akin Pavilion, 7,000 people in 2 hours to a dead funk market. Now what? Then I came on back home. I started doing shows here. Then we did the fast forward to the Long Beach Funk Festival.
Oh boy, that was fun.
Long Beach Funk Festival. For the first time I wrote about it in my book. For the first time in 20 years, I had the Funk and Festival on a flyer. No one has seen that. They say ain't nobody going to that concert. And we headlined, Gail and I, we're back together. Headlining. They were expecting maybe 6,000, 7,000 people. And then my road manager, security guard, production manager over there, see, Keista Jones was there. He's a witness. And a market, and Marcy was there too. Don't get me started. And a market in a dead market that was only supposed to have 4,000 or 5,000. You know how many people showed up at that market in Long Beach, California? 25,000. And they came from all over the world. And I said, dear diary, today was a good day. Then after that, 2020 hit. COVID. I have nothing to do. Nothing to say. No opinion. Either way. No place to go. And nothing to do. So I decided, since I took all of them things and that my mother wrote about and what I wrote about and what I wrote down all those years, and I started putting it all together. The next thing I know, I had a book. Okay. And then a friend of mine had some pictures, 3,000 of them, and he sent them to me. And I started putting them in that book as well. Okay? Then I go over to a bunch of publishing companies and I say, I got a book. You know what they said? Ain't no market for no funk. Funk is dead. It need to stay dead. And I was like, really? So I did the same thing with this book that I did with my CD that sold 275,000 copies out my kitchen. And I took it over and I found a place to do the distribution and the publishing on it, and it was in China. A lot cheaper to go over there because the United States says we don't do table books anymore. Nobody's going to buy that book. So I said, well, how many copies shall I do? I said, oh, let's do a couple of thousand. Almost sold out. And then I went to the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco. Let's fast forward all the way up there and did a show up there in a dead market that nobody said it was going to come to. We picked up the Grateful Dead market, Jerry Garcia's market. Nice little crowd. Just so happened I happened to meet Harry Duncan. Peter Marabellis was there. This gentleman right here from the radio station. And they said the Brides of Funkenstein are going to be performing. And then fast forward today, March 26, 2025. I'm here with this book and had the audacity to call it The Funk Queen. And I just ordered another 1,000 copies. Okay.
The haters are running.
So, Black Panthers. Here you go. You're supposed to you got me narrating, moderating my own show now. Come on, Harry Duncan.
Okay, here.
Okay.
Make you feel better. Hey, Dawn, I know you had some early involvement with the Black Panthers and they were an influence on you. Will you speak to us about that?
Say that again. Say it again. He's good. Say it again.
I know you had early on a relationship, whether you liked it or not, with the Black Panthers, and that had a profound influence on you. Would you be kind enough to speak to the assembled multitudes here and online about that?
Wow, I forgot those folks online, huh? I thought this was private.
No.
I'm just talking and stuff. Well, when I was growing up as a child too, so, growing up as a black, indigenous, African, French, Acadian, German, all-American, mixed all up person in America, since we all are. I don't know too many black people who don't have indigenous in their bloodline. I don't know too many at all. I know I do. On both sides. Seminole. Anyway, we didn't have, I went to a school in California because I grew up at a time when half of America was segregated, right? Now, California wasn't segregated, at least on the surface. But I went to an all-white school in Sacramento. And I often felt invisible, like I wasn't there, like nobody saw me. And I was like, they didn't bother me, they just act like I wasn't there. And I just felt like I didn't have any value, right? So I decided to join the Black Panthers. Got my hair, had big old natural. And I would go down to the Black Panther headquarters after school and feed the homeless, not the homeless, but feed the children, right? Breakfast programs, and I had a captain, and his name was Captain Akasanya, one of the sergeants of Black Panthers, and he was a good guy, really nice guy. And then as time went on and I wanted to know more about the philosophies of the Black Panthers, I went over there to Oakland, to Lakeshore Drive, where the Black Panther headquarters was. And I went up there with 13 other girls that were invited, very young, naive, just happy to be there. Power to the people, right? Power to the people, right? So we went and had this long table where all these Black Panthers were, these soldiers were. And we all stood and said, power to the people again. And then they said that they wanted us 13 girls, we were picked, the chosen few, to have soldiers. Each one of us had to have 3 babies. With these soldiers, I was like, what a baby, babies, making babies. Babies making babies. I said, wait a minute. I didn't read nothing in Malcolm X's autobiography about having no army of soldiers. I said, I don't want to be a Black Panther no more. I changed my mind. What they said to me that I was being insubordinate. Is it my book? Insubordinate. Oh, Lord. Insubordinate. So they kidnapped me. They took all my clothes. They took my purse and shoes and my car keys and gave me a towel and locked me in a room by myself. So you're going to have to read about in the book how I escaped. I was the only one out of the 13 girls that did escape. I did. With my towel.
You gotta have your towel.
I left everything up there, everything I owned. And I escaped. And I ran down 25 flights of stairs. But I realized that the concierge who was at the front door was part of the Panthers' payroll. And the only way I can get out the door is that they have to unlock it. So I was afraid to go to the floor, the first floor. So I went to the second floor and I climbed in a garbage can, one of those big old dumpsters. And I laid in there for 2-3 hours. And I could hear garbage clanging down from the 25th floor. You hear it coming all the way down. And I was in there for hours. The next thing I know, I was getting surrounded by garbage. And then something sliced across my leg. I have a bruise on my leg to this day. Something sharp cut across my leg. I said, I don't think this is a good place to hide after all.
That was a dumpster cut. Get tetanus.
So I climbed out the garbage can and tiptoed with my dirty towel now down to the front office, to the first floor. And the concierge said, they're looking for you, hide in the closet, hide in the closet. So I was afraid because I thought he was going to call and turn me in. He said, no, go in there. So I went into that closet and He said, "You're bleeding, you're bleeding. Wrap yourself up, wrap your leg up." And then he gave me a raincoat and some old boots. Called a cab and gave me $20. And I had a sister who was living here in San Francisco, right over there on 16th and Mission. And I caught a cab from Oakland to San Francisco across the Bay Bridge. When I got over there, I called Sly Stone on the phone, because I was singing with Sly at that time. And he came and picked me up. And then I think you guys are going to have to read about what happened after that. Oh, Sly got him though. But he saved my life.
When he come get you, you okay.
Sly came and got me. In a Cornish Rolls Royce, by the way. Saved my life. He did. Because you don't just leave, you don't walk away from the Panthers, but I was so naive. And then Sly said something to me that I would never forget, and I wrote it, and I said, "Dear diary, what should I say?" And Sly said, "If you're not going to be all the way down for the revolution, then don't go playing in their backyards." And I wasn't a Panther no more after that. You got anything else you want to say?
Yeah. So this is a bunch of people have asked this question, so I'll keep it simple. By anybody's standards, your autobiography here is an inspired work. I'm saying that.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. So who and what were some of the inspirations to write this? With all that you've just talked about, Sly, P-Funk, your great-grandfather, who and what could you identify and share as your principal essential inspirations for this?
My mother. My mother. Because people used to say, "What kind of bedtime stories was she telling you?" It was like they were scary. But what my mother was doing after I realized as I got older that she was preparing her children for a world that can be cruel and unfair. And I'm really proud that she did do that. So my mother helped me, inspired me to write this book and to actually, I wish that she was here now to see that her stories, how phenomenal they were to me as a child. And so many people, I think maybe close to 1,000 people have written to me saying that this story is similar to their own, right? And they all took these pictures, my butterflies here, they all took pictures and wanted to know that they took special time to take their selfies with these pictures, with this book, and they all sent them to me, and all of them told me about their own experiences reading this book. I had people yelling at the book, screaming at the book, clapping,
What'd you tell
angry.
him? Why did you tell him that?
You know, it just, it's very emotional. This is, and there's one question I think someone asked me, that what would the older Dawn tell the younger Dawn? Is there anything that, I don't think, there's a question on there.
Yeah. What stood out for you in your book is that you did not make excuses for your good or bad decisions. You gave reasons. If you could give a message to your younger self at the start of your career, what would you do over? And that was from Mike and Mary in Victoria, Australia.
Mike and Mary. Now that's a story I can write about Mike and Marie, I think, in Australia. They live in
Victoria,
Australia. They started reading the book together, and then her husband started cheating and taking the book with them, and so they almost got a divorce over this book. So yes, they did, because they're supposed to read it together, and he started sneaking and stuff. But anyway, that's another story.
Creeping.
Yeah, but if I could tell younger Dawn, I when she was 15 and she wanted to go in the music industry, and she had all those aspirations to be in go on the road and be in a world, that has the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. I would have given her this book to read before she went, and I think young Dawn would have had a career change. I don't think young Dawn would have went out on the road. I don't think she would have been in the music industry. very brutal world. It has the best of the best, but it has the lowest of the lows. And if you're not prepared, because young Dawn was not, you make unwise decisions and unwise choices, and she made a whole bunch of them. So yeah, that's what I would do. I'd give Dawn this book right here.
Okay, so from Anita in Vancouver, Canada, funk music has such a deep cultural impact. Looking back, what do you think has made it so powerful?
Spiritual, unique, exciting, exhilarating, one of a kind. It fills your spirit. It's just like when you go outside on a hot, hot day and a cold breeze blows across your face. That's the funk. And there's nothing like it. It can't be duplicated or replicated. The funk is the funk.
Okay. So in that spirit, from Marcel in Stockholm.
Stockholm?
Not Stockton, Stockholm. Come on, you had that coming. If you could describe the funk in 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
I just said, yeah. Fun, exciting, unique, sweaty, funky, yeah. What else you got?
That was a cheap answer, but that's
That was no cheap answer. If in 3 words, you said 3 words. I can probably give you like a...
Okay, now everybody hold on to your psychic sky caps here. I have to read this one.
Okay.
I was 8 hours into my plane ride to Saigon. There was a man sitting in the aisle seat reading a large book. I was talking to him about moving so I could use the facilities. He was involved with his reading, so I had to touch his arm. He wiped tears and left his seat. Hours later, he was laughing. I said, "That must be a good book." He said it's the best he'd ever read. He gave me the book. I had just finished reading chapter 40 when I felt the plane landing. I was fighting tears. The cost of your book was expensive to purchase, but it was an obsession to finish reading. I'm pleased with my decision. As the stranger said, it's the best book I ever read. One question, as there are many, how difficult was it for you to revisit these stories while writing the book? And that's from Tammy in Saigon City, Vietnam.
Wow.
And she wasn't playing.
She said, what chapter did she finish reading?
I had just finished reading chapter 40 when I felt the plane landing.
Chapter 40 is probably the darkest chapter in the entire book. That's when I was in the relationship with the not a very nice person. So yeah, it's if she read that chapter, I wasn't even able to edit that chapter. It was so dark because I didn't want to revisit. I didn't want to remember it. So if you see a lot of typos and misspelled words and punctuation mark errors in there, because there's quite a few, I could not. There's some chapters I just couldn't reread or edit anymore after I wrote them. They were that dark. And then I had some people say they were crying and broke down just sobbing. And so you said she was crying. Yeah, it's a very, very dark, painful chapter. But I had to write it because I know it's a chapter on abuse. And then most women, they stay in these abusive relationships and they don't understand why. But I figured it out. I figured out why I was staying. And I had to write it down so maybe someone else who's trapped can figure out how to get out of it. So she said, someone said I didn't make excuses. No, I gave reasons as to why I stayed in that relationship for so long, and it was very bad. But I had to write it so maybe I might inspire or help someone else to get out of the same situation I was in. That's why I wrote it. Yeah, but deep chapter.
Master P, have you got any? Okay. So, how about you fearless funketeers right here?
Use the mic because they can't hear you.
Oh. Yep. How about the fearless Funketeers that are here with us tonight? Who's got some questions? Just raise your hand and speak your mind. Come on, John.
Thanks. You want to go first? Okay. Let me try to get this so we can run around the room. There you go.
So, Dawn,
Yes, ma'am.
how did Sly take it when you jumped ship to the mothership?
There you go. How did Sly take it when he lost Sly's girls, when George stole the Sly Stone's background singers? Not very well. You know Sly. He wasn't all that happy about it. But let me say this, sometimes you never know how good you have it until you know. Sly Stone was probably the best gig I ever had, and he protected his singers, his female singers. He loved us, you know that. He took care of his women. He was very, very respectful of his girls. You better not mess with one of Sly's girls. But I think we were in love with the music. I fell in love with the funk and the spaceship and the whole concept of it all. And if I would have known what I know now, I wouldn't have never left. I would have stayed with Sly. But yeah, it was just another, dimension and another derivative of our lives. And the music at the time, like I said, Parliament-Funkadelic was the biggest band in the world at that time. So it was kind of difficult not to go over there and take a ride on the mothership. And I think I would do that all over again. If I was given the choice, I would have done the same thing. I would have. Yeah, because of George Clinton, the Brides of Funkenstein and this music has sustained for all these years. It's still here. It hasn't gone anywhere because the authenticity of the music. And that's what happens with the funk, I'm hooked for life. I'll always be a Funketeer. I will always be a Funkadelic. Always. You know that. Once a Funkadelic, always a Funkadelic. Well, Sly was... He wasn't working as much as he was before, and he was going through another dimension of his life. Yeah, I wrote why Sly wasn't doing, he's just kind of like, I think it got a little bit overwhelming for him when you're on that level, because there's no one has been as big as Sly Stone. And Parliament-Funkadelic wasn't big as Sly and Family Stone, by any stretch of the imagination. He was the biggest in the absolute world. When we were playing, come on, the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville with Sly and Family Stone, with Minnie Pearl and Loretta Lynn. We played some of the, Don Kirshner's rock concert. P-Funk wasn't on those shows, so yeah. He was in a whole nother world.
Could you talk a little bit about the connection between spirituality and music?
There isn't, it's one of the same. There is no separations with that. It is spiritual. It's like, David in the Bible, Psalms is songs. All of the songs that David wrote, that whole chapter in the Bible is about music. Spirituals from the heart. So yeah, music, spirituality is connected. It's just like the head and the body. Without the head, the body doesn't work. Without the body, the head don't work. That's what music and spirituality is. My opinion.
Anybody else in the room want to pose any questions? Let's see. Oh, hold on. They can't hear you. They can't hear you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. What was the last concert you went to see that you didn't perform in?
The last one that I went to, the last one that I went to and I didn't perform in? Jesus, what was that one? The last one that I went to that I didn't perform in. You mean with P-Funk? Let me see. As the last concert. I haven't really, you know why I don't really go to concerts that much unless I'm performing? Because it feels like I'm at work.
I want to be sing. I want to be up there. I don't want
I mean, it's like it's hard for me to go to a concert or a show than unless because it feels like I'm at work. So let me think. Who's the last person that I went to see? I can't think of anyone that I went to go see that I wasn't on stage with. And it's been some years. Most of the concerts I've gone to over the years, I was performing, so I can't think of anybody that I think went. No. Yeah, you stunned me, did you? Okay, butterfly. Anybody else want to stun me tonight before I go home? No, I'm just kidding. You're gonna make me go home thinking about that, you know. Let's see, who have I gone to see that I didn't perform with? And Annie Lennox with the Eurythmics. I was over there working, doing with Dave. I didn't ever work with the Eurythmics. I hung out with the Eurythmics. Let's get that straight, yeah. I did. I worked with Dave Stewart, and he worked on a lot of soundtracks and films, and on some songs that he was working on in studio and stuff. A lot of soundtracks. But I was over in Paris, in Grenoble, France, and the Eurythmics were performing, and I was backstage. And Annie goes, "Hey, Dawn, you want to come out, Dawn?" I was like, "Nah." I didn't know her shows. So I would have gone out, but yeah, I went to go see her, and she was phenomenal. Really, really good person. Yeah, I think that was a long time ago. It's the last time probably the first show I've ever gone to that I didn't perform was with Eurythmics. Good question. Mm-hmm.
So, who are some artists of today, in any genre, that you think have the heart and the soul and the vision and the focus that you appreciate, or that you would hope that they would have?
Today?
Yeah, tonight. I mean, who are?
If I had to think of someone? Think of one. Just one. Is it just any genres of music, or is it funk?
No. Funk is the best, but any genre will do.
Childish Gambino. Yeah, I like Childish Gambino.
Okay.
I like Drake. He's cool. Even though he's fighting with what's his name? That other guy. Well, Drake, but I like Canada, you know. Love Canada. Who's he fighting with? Yeah, I like Drake. Who else? Kendra Lamar. Who else? I like Bruno Mars. You know, that's not funk though. That's R&B. That's.
We're not limiting it to funk.
You know, that's R&B.
It's tribute.
Yes, tribute. What's tribute funk?
That
You know.
means they appreciate the funk, so they try to emulate it. It's kind of a compliment.
I like Erykah Badu. You know, she's cool. I like her. I like Erykah. Angie Stone, God rest her soul, just passed away. I loved her. And D'Angelo is another one. If you're into what is that? How kind of music is that style? And Neil Soul. Was that Neil?
How about Jill Scott?
I love Jill Scott. It's just like, I can't think, you know, I'm such a funkster. It's like Calvin, is there a funk group out there?
I listen to what y'all listen to.
You listen to what we listen to. It's just, I don't think there are any funk groups out there right now. That Slapback, Jar Harris. Yeah, he's cool. But are you talking about mainstream that's way up there on the food train chain ladder? I only listen to my stuff in funk. You know, I just, if I'm selfish, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I really can't think of too many. I like Sting. I love Sting. I love the heck out of Sting. Yeah. Dave Matthews. But yeah, so that's about it.
Anybody have Come on, John. I know you got a question. Justin, don't be sneaking back there, man. Don't you have a question?
What about with countries, like other countries when you traveled or toured, like what, there's funk all over the place. Like which countries have surprised you or impressed you? Like, wow, like I wasn't expecting this country to have a lot of funk music. You're like,
You see, I'm from Parliament-Funkadelic, and it's hard for anybody to. When you come from that, from the best of the music and the best is just there's nothing that really comes close to that, as far as my opinion. I'm with Parliament-Funkadelic is the funkiest group in the world. When I was in Brazil, there was this Latin had a song out called Mama Africa. I can't think of his name right now. I was surprised because they were opening up for the Platters, and they had I can't think of his name. It's a shame right now. Think of it when I get home, but look up the song called Mama Africa. And what I was surprised is that they have they had Portuguese, Latin funk, the tribal beats mixture together was something that I didn't know existed until I got to Brazil. In a city called Bahia, Brazil, was predominantly Portuguese and African mixture. Beautiful people, the bluest of eyes, blondest of hair, dark skin, beautiful people. I didn't know that country existed like that, but their music is a combination of Latin and funk. So yeah, it's very unique. I think that's the closest to P-Funk that I've heard was in Brazil.
I think we had a question over here.
Yeah, how did you guys come up with the concept for Party Up in Here? Was the track done first, or did you and Lynn, did y'all come up with the lyrical content with that? I mean, that's one of the funkiest pieces I've ever heard.
I think Party Up in Here was Skeet, Rodney Skeet Curtis. I think he wrote that track. I think somebody's going to correct me out there. Tim Kinley, if he's somewhere listening. He'll probably correct me because he knows more about it than I do.
Tim's actually at Bootsy's house today. Him and Funkster Jones.
Really?
Yeah,
they'll know with us. Party Up in Here, actually, George wrote those lyrics. George wrote all of that stuff. We didn't write the lyrics. We come up with melodies and pieces and little snippets and stuff, but most of that stuff was written by George Clinton. That was his concept.
Yeah, it's kind of deep because a little bit different than the Emotions and other people. Y'all came with a whole different kind of thing.
We wouldn't. The Emotions?
No, I mean, I'm just talking about like female groups, and then y'all come with a whole nother kind of thing.
We were very unique. It was there wasn't any female groups like that at all. Didn't still to this day. So yeah, it was honored to be in that group. Still keeping it going now because it still sells out pretty well when we do shows. It does well.
Anyone else? Oh, yes.
One more question.
For those of us who really can't sing or play, but would love the experience of the rush of being on stage, would artists like yourself be willing to let somebody get on stage with an unplugged mic or unplugged guitar and jam with you, or do you need to say, look, you need to get back and do your homework and come back when you really can play or sing?
Is that a question?
Yes.
Well, we used to have a bunch of those that used to do that. Just jump up on the stage. Remember that, Marcy? Oh, yeah. Yes, I think George had to stop him from doing that because it used to be half the audience would jump up on the stage, especially when the show, towards the end of the show, it was packed, crowded, We had to stop doing that. You want to know why I talked about it in the book? You know what I did? You know what I did? Did you read it? Oh, God. Lynn and we used to sit on the front row of the stage and smoke weed with the front row. We did. I talked about it in the book, so might as well say it now. Yeah, we were known for the two girls in the Brides of Funkenstein would sit on the edge of the stage and smoke weed with the audience. Like, pass the joy. And everybody was fighting to get on the front row, right? And I didn't think nothing of it. They were filming this, right? It was Sometimes I see the film of us, like, oh God, what was I thinking? But yeah, that was pretty much known all across the United States and all the way over to Europe. Like, if you got to sit on the front row, you can actually smoke weed with the girls. At least me and Lynn, anyway. So I stopped doing that when we got to Atlanta at the Omni Theater when somebody passed me an angel dust joint. And all of a sudden, everything slowed down, like, yeah, that was it for me, smoking with the audience, right? That was scary. So that was my, like you know, the bad choices and good choices, and come up with a reason why you did that. I had no reason for doing that. I just thought that was really stupid. But we were fun. We were young kids. But yeah, somebody passed me an angel dust joint. Wasn't a good idea. So no more smoking with the audience. Or partying, or no one got to come up on stage anymore after that.
So will you talk for a minute about folks that might not know this history? Just give like a simple explanation about how the Brides of Funkenstein evolved, how they started and evolved and became their own musical entity outside of P-Funk, and what was the difference between Brides of Funkenstein and Parlette?
Wasn't much of a difference. It was the music. It was the songs. The Parlettes, our sister group. They were the stronger singers, actually. I thought. And with Malia Franklin, she had the lead singer for Parlette. She had one of those kind of voices that she would fall on her knees and hit these notes that would shatter. You ever see anybody shatter glass with their voice? I've never seen anybody do that except Malia Franklin. She's the only one I've ever seen do that. She had the most powerful voice I've ever heard. But the songs that the funk organization were giving to Parlette were a little bubblegumish for me. They were a little disco, and it didn't capture the true talent. These girls were like Shaka Khan and Patti LaBelle all rolled up into one. They were phenomenal. But the organization kind of didn't really appreciate what they really had with those girls, right? So the Brides of Funkenstein were more commercial, marketable, first of all, because we were coming from Sly Stone. We were Sly's girls. So the record company jumped on it with 2 big feet with us. And they promoted the heck out of the Brides of Funkenstein, and we were like, you know, goody two-shoes, kind of like cheerleaders in the P-Funk. You know, Parlette was like hardcore, just rough around the edges. They were from Detroit, and those were some hardcore sisters, them girls. You know, it was like, shit, they had vocabulary like a razor blade. Them could, you know, I'm trying to have some nice words. They was hard. But they was hard off stage, and they was hard on stage, and they were just powerful. And I don't think the organization knew how to produce them. But we were goody two-shoes. You know, Sly's girls were all cute and, like I said, little cheerleaders. And so they knew how to market us. So, but after being on the road with P-Funk and those guys, you know, we started kind of getting a little hard rough around the edges our own self. You know, we changed. We got a little tough. We had to be, you know, in order to stand with the soldiers. We did. That's the difference. I think on the production-wise, they didn't know how to produce them. They didn't know what they had. Parlette was a diamond in a rough. And they got caught sleeping on that group because they should have been powerful. Should have been household names. Yes, we'll be here all day. Yes.
Sly Stone.
Hold on. Just a sec. Come around, because they can't hear you. Are you? Okay.
Yep. Sly Stone had a group called Little Sister.
Yeah.
Were you a part of that?
No, I wish.
And oh yeah. Okay.
But me and her ended up singing Little Sister parts for the first records we were on with Sly, right?
Yeah.
Remember? And that was mad. Don't say that.
No.
You never heard it from me.
Yeah, we did. Sly had
It's true that.
Sly had us go in and
Yeah.
sing a lot of the backs and some leads and stuff on Little Sister.
That was so much fun. Oh my God.
Big-
That never came to be a group.
Little Sister?
They were just more. They did go out.
Yeah,
and
Little
have
Sister
songs.
was a group.
Yeah.
See, what happened to Little Sister, same thing happened to Parlette. They got caught. They slept on them. And them was some singing sisters
Boy,
too.
they
was
could sing.
First Church of God in Christ Pentecostal. They were bad.
They'd be practicing in the living room.
Phenomenal.
I just stand there like
phenomenal singers.
stand
They
there.
just
Like,
they didn't get the breaks.
I was about this tall.
They didn't push, they didn't push them. They were the first group that I actually idolized. And there wasn't too many female groups that I idolized, and Little Sister was one of them.
I'm the one. You're the one.
You're the one. I'm the one.
I'm the one. You're the one.
Yeah,
Don't blame your neighborhood. You're the one. Your mama can't make it good. You're the one. Don't blame no argument. You're the one. Doesn't know how to take the hit. Oh man, and I love the words.
Yeah,
right?
it was a great song.
Wow.
Yeah, that was Sly produced them.
Wow.
What Stoneflower? That was one of his first production, and on CBS. And CBS slept on them because they should have got blown up. But back in those days, they wanted them to be, female groups had to be, a little bouffant wigs, a little gown, a little, sitting like. They had to be pretty much laid back, they had to stay in their place. Now, for us, renegades, we were hardcore females, and so we kind of overstepped our boundaries a little bit, a lot of it, but back in those days.
So wonder we made it out alive, girl, I'm telling you.
Yeah, well, they call us renegades now, but
I'm just plain crazy.
we are, yeah, we're different. They're not like us.
They still ain't like us.
Yes. Okay.
I know someone else here has a question. How about you, brother? Yeah, you. No? Take it over.
Yeah. We're gonna put you on the spot.
Miss Silva, how you doing back
I'm
here?
fine. How are you?
I'm good. Well, there goes the microphone.
Yeah.
All right, it's an honor to be in your presence.
The honor is mine.
I work with a lot of people in the funk, Tracy and the whole gang, and everybody speaks highly of you. Jerry said to tell you hello. He's on the boat now with the band.
Who said?
My godfather, Jerry.
Yeah.
From Sly. Yeah.
From Sly?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he said
cool.
they're on the boat now. He said to tell you hi. I came down here just to.
Jerry Martini.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, tell him I said hello.
He said he loves you.
I tell him I love him back.
All right.
Papa J, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And baby Chelsea.
Baby Chelsea. Oh my God, baby Chelsea. Yeah,
She's
they're
big.
They're
She's doing
family. They're
great.
I used to babysit.
I know. He told me all
I used to
about it.
babysit her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Told me all about it. I'm buying the book, by the way.
family.
I gotta
Good.
have it. Gotta have it.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you so much.
Why don't you talk for a minute? Writing this book was transforming for you on a number of levels, and I wonder if you can speak to that, emotionally, spiritually. It by default made you a smart, focused, competent business person, having published it yourself and distributed it yourself. So can you share with us how, now that this is a living, breathing entity, how this changed you in ways that you couldn't foresee before you wrote it?
Well, one thing I learned is that running a publishing company is a lot of work. And that's not my forte. It's not something that I think I want to continue doing. I want to be an artist, and I enjoy writing. And I wrote this book like I would write a song, right? You have to be careful about the words that you use. That's why it probably took me all my life to write this. I didn't write this. I started writing this in the 3rd grade, right? So I never, in my wildest imaginations, that I would be sitting here talking about releasing, self-publishing a book. But someone told me that I couldn't do it. That is impossible. We're not interested. It'll never sell. Especially if the subject matter that I'm talking about, because it's such a profound art form that's been buried. And the reason why I believe it's been buried is because you can't duplicate it. You can't replicate it. And if you play a true funk song on a radio, nothing can follow behind that. It's too powerful. If it's in its purest form, you can't follow this funk. You can't. It's just like you want to go to work every day on the bus, or you're riding a Rolls Royce. You're going to get to work. But you're going to ride in that Rolls Royce, and it's going to be smooth. Okay, that's the difference. You can go to a restaurant and eat a hot dog or filet mignon. You're full. But that filet mignon is soft and sweet, and it's going to flow through your body. That hot dog going to make you sick. But you're full. Does that make sense? So I was empty because the funk music they were systematically shutting it down, eliminating it. And I had a problem with that, with this art form. And it isn't just funk. You're just like, one thing I didn't talk about, Harry, is that I went out on the road with the Latin Kings, too. With the Latin Kings is a makeup of War. You remember War? And a group called Malo and El Tierra. And Malo had a big record out, Suavecito. But we mixed together black and brown music, funk and Latin, like they did in Brazil that I was talking to you about. And I did that here. And they said it wasn't going to happen. So we went over to, before they shut down, what's that club? They have one in Oakland, and they shut that one down here in San Francisco. Yoshi's. We went to Yoshi's, the Latin Kings and Dawn Silva, the Brides of Funkenstein. 5 nights, 10 shows, sold out, 5 nights. Playing Latin and funk together, black and brown, because they said it wasn't going to happen, and it did. Someone told me it couldn't happen. And when you tell me it ain't going to happen, tell me it's something you can't do, I prove them wrong every time, especially when you have funk in your backyard, when you have this music, and it's anointed. It is. I don't know too many songs that make you want to laugh and cry at the same time, right? I don't. And that's this music. So when I wrote this, I wasn't thinking that it was going to do as well as it did. I just did it for myself because I needed it. And I got a lot of songs I haven't even released yet, which I'm going to eventually do that. And I start being selfish because I was keeping it to myself. I said, I wonder if I put this into a book, how well it would do. And share my heart and my adventures through this art form. It's unstoppable. So yeah, this is my pride and joy. And now I've set the bar so high, it's like I wonder what comes after this. I don't know what comes after this. I know that I've set even too high for my own self. But that's just, I'm looking forward to reaching that next goal and meeting all these wonderful people. And then with that, I'm going to close, unless you have one more thing. And this is what I want to say before we go, because we got to drive back to Sacramento. It's a nice drive. I'm also a farmer. Both of us are farmers. I'm Farmer Dawn, that's Farmer Gail. And we get up in the morning and we go pick our breakfast in the backyard. And I know Peter has a garden. And I wish we were exchanging little things about how to keep the squirrels and the creatures out of your garden by... I can tell you real fast. You take some, vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and some white pearl onions, right? And you put them in a big jar or bowl and let them sit overnight. then you take some rags and you soak them in the vinegar and the white onions, and you put them around your garden. You'll never have another pest in there again. Ever. Trust me. Or if you want to plant some mint. Mint. The bugs hate mint. Because if you have a garden and we have all of these bugs coming in, they don't like mint. And they don't like cayenne pepper and chili powder. Sprinkle all that on there. You have the best garden in the world. So the last word I want to say before I leave is like, oh, I'm going to sign a book, but I got to go. You know, I'm getting old. I got to go to the bathroom. So anyway, right. So the last thing you need to do if you have a garden is plant some rosemary by the gate, lavender for luck and ladybugs, and fall in love as much as you can. Thank you guys for coming down tonight. Woo!
All right, so
Yeah,
1, 2, yeah, there. So Dawn's going to sign copies of her book, which you can pick up at the counter, and she'll be right here. And I want to thank each and every one for taking the time to come by tonight, too. We appreciate it. And thank you to City Lights for hosting.
Thank you, Peter. It's been an honor to meet you. It's an honor to be at City Lights. And another thing, if you're watching the new Sly Stone documentary that just came out from on Questlove, yeah, on I think it's on Hulu, I believe it is. I watched it the other night, and I actually saw the sign. When it starts, the movie starts, you see the City Lights logo in that film. So I was, honored that I'm here, because I know this has been here probably longer than we were born, and you was born here. I'm just so proud, and for to be here. It's such an honor for you guys to invite me, and I'm looking forward to coming back. And next time, bring my crew with us so we can do a show. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So San Francisco's been really good to us, and I thank you, Peter Maravellis, and thank you, Harry Duncan. It was indeed a pleasure. And what's your radio station? KPOO. Okay.